Have I got soup on me anywhere?
No, you look good.
On my nose and my teeth? Is there broccoli in my teeth?
Welcome everyone tonight to our third installation of our soup and salad suppers. Amazing soup and salad tonight. It is so good. I had to try the zuppa twice just to make sure I liked it. And it turns out I do like it very much. Tonight we are blessed, and just in general, we are blessed to have Maybelle Godwin here in our community.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks.
You know, you meet people in my line of work, and you meet a lot of people, and they're all special in their own different way. But you meet some that just stand out to you and who stick with you in your mind and in your heart. And I think Maybelle is one of those ones.
Ooh, thank you.
So,
Thank you.
Hopefully you've had time to come by and take a close look at her work and just to take it all in. But if not, spend some time after she's done just looking and enjoying. And I'm looking forward to her presentation tonight. I've not heard it yet, so I'm excited. As excited as you are. I think she's probably the first person to get 3 rounds of applause. Let's welcome Maybelle.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, you all are family and fun. I'm Maybelle Godwin, and my background is education. I taught elementary school. I taught little folks and loved it. And I taught in several different states, Florida, Alabama, and California. So I'm sort of spread all over. But this is home now, and I'm delighted to be here with you all. And I'm going to talk to you all and tell you about the meaning of religious icons. You all know icon is a Greek word, and it means image. And now that everybody has computers, you know that an icon can bring up all sorts of different things. Volume, pictures, information, and that sort of thing. And so much of this was strange to me, an icon, because I had not been exposed to this sort of colorful thing as a child growing up in the Presbyterian church. We had a modest kind of interior, but this explosion of color has come into all of our lives now, and I'm going to tell you what I know about it. What is an icon? The definition of a Greek word icon is image. And I'm going to read to you all what I've got, because if I don't, I'll go off on a tangent and I'll start preaching. All right, you look at the toolbar on a computer. Each little symbol means something. Volume control, internet connection, media player, and so on. Each one represents a greater object, such as a program or process, and gives the user a quick link to that object. This religious icon, hopefully, is something that gives you a quick link into religion and the good word, the gospel. Religious icons are similar in that they're also symbols or representations of a greater object. In this case, the object is a pictorial expression of the teachings of the church by representing concrete events, persons of sacred history, and indicating inner meaning, a kind of symbolic snapshot of holy persons and events. Icons are a form of prayer. When you look at an icon, it's meant to make you aware that you are in the presence of God. Icons then aren't just art with a religious theme. They're sacred art because they bring the viewer to the sacred. Icons first made their appearance during the time of the preaching of Christianity by the apostles. The first images were actually found on the walls of the catacombs. They were drawn by witnesses or from the accounts of witnesses who experienced the events or knew the people in the early church firsthand. The icons are accounts of sacred events and people. Some icons are allegorical and symbolic, such as the anchor or the lamb or the fish, but there also were pictures drawn from the Old and New Testaments. They were used as an educational tool to tell the accounts of the teachings of the church in picture form. In a sense, the icons were theology in color. We know that the icons are an art form. It has been in existence since the 5th century. 5th century. Some of the earliest icons that we know today are from St. Catherine's Monastery in the Sinai and are from the 6th century. Most of the early icons were destroyed by iconoclastic controversies of the 8th and 9th century. The location of St. Catherine's in the Sinai was so isolated and also in such an arid region, the desert, that they were preserved from enemies and from nature. Iconography is broken down as icon writer. Flourished in the Byzantine world, especially in the areas around Greece, Constantinople, Syria, and Palestine, and by the 11th century spread into Russia by missionaries and the conversion of Russia to the Christian faith. It was also in the 11th century of that Christian church, it was officially divided into the Roman Catholic Church of the West and the Orthodox Church of the East. Now, the art of the two churches became quite different. In the West, the Romanesque art moved on into the Gothic style, and then into the Renaissance, and then into the Baroque. On the other hand, the Byzantine art of the Eastern Orthodox Church maintains its unity of style and content. If you see the icons in Rome and all, you'll see blondes and curly hair and blue eyes. The Byzantine art still keeps the Byzantine method. And the reason why it's the canons of the church, of the Eastern Orthodox Church, that they passed in church laws that kept the guidelines of the icons, and therefore most of the icons painted today are almost identical to the icons of the past. Prototypes of the early icons have been carefully followed throughout the centuries by iconographers. Iconography is the writing of an icon or the painting of an image. The icons we see today and here, if they're not my originals, but if they're originals, they're under lock and key. But those that are so treasured, those old icons, those images are put into today's iconography pictures in iconography. Icons. The fundamental principle of art is a pictorial expression of the teachings of the church by representing concrete events like the first miracle of Cana in the wedding, wherever that is, it's somewhere. The fundamental principle, it represents concrete events and persons of sacred history and indicates inner meaning. Icons are a vehicle of the gospel teaching, a learning tool. Through the ages, icons have been condemned by the iconoclastics, and as you all know, that an iconoclast person is a person that makes attack. It attacks and destroys cherished beliefs and destroys and opposes the veneration of the religious images. And they literally did that. They destroyed them, burned them, chopped them up, threw them in the river, whatever. And through the ages, they have been condemned, they've been prized by collectors, they've been featured in upscale department stores, and when their icons are appreciated for their folksy or primitive or otherworldly properties, their true purposes are trivialized. They serve to educate and to present the church's teaching in line, form, and hue rather than in words. The early days of the church, books were rare, and in most cases, churchgoers could not read. With the introduction of icons, frescoes, wooden panels, and mosaic, it transformed the church interiors into a sacred place while presenting the Christian message visually. Church walls became wordless textbooks. One of the purposes of the icon is not to reveal heavenly mysteries, but to influence and educate the believer. One way is to evoke remembrance, a clearly educational function. The icon brings to mind the event. 2, it's also hoped that the icon will bring a change in the inner world of the worshiper. And I know that you all have had this feeling sometimes when you hear Judith and her beautiful music, or you walk into a forest, or you walk into a church and you have an awesome feeling. This is a change in you, an inner change, and hopefully sometimes the icon will give you that. You may have felt this with hymns or walking into the church buildings. Another reason for the icon is 3, to impress on us the virtue of those depicted, to incite us to respond positively to it, and to incorporate it into our lives. In short, to produce a hunger for righteousness, to imitate. Remember, change, and impress or imitate. Icons fall into several different categories. Christ, the Mother of God, angels, saints, and prophets, and festival days, the feast days of the church, sacred events from the life of Christ or the saints. The icons I have here are not my invention. They have some of my nuances, just like handwriting. There's always the artist will have put themselves into the painting, so you'll always be able to recognize different artists. But I always follow a prototype. I always follow something that has already been done. Several people can write the same words, but their handwriting is different, but the words are alike. In a class of iconographers, we all follow the same prototype, but the icons all have little differences, just like handwriting. The icon of St. Paul, our banner, is done on canvas. I felt strongly to make this banner for our chapel. It was taken to the convention in Mobile and led our congregation literally down the aisle in St. Paul's, Mobile, when we became our own parish here in Magnolia Springs. It was awesome. St. Paul is carrying a book of letters, the epistles, again, a teaching opportunity. The other icons that I have here today have been written on wooden panels that have been overlaid with muslin and then gessoed and sanded down several times. They say, my iconographer friend says they let the penitent monks do that because it is it's got to be smooth as a mirror, smooth as it can be, and hard. And then paint is applied, and paint is applied over and over and layered until it builds up to give you the flesh tones. You start with dark and gradually come up to light. And the same techniques are followed on the frescoed walls and canvas. Symbols are frequently used. As I mentioned, St. Paul carries the book of letters, the epistles, the gospel. Christ is seen often with a shepherd's hook or lamb or a crown of thorns. He also holds a book. If the book is closed, he's the judge. If the book is open, he's the teacher. And now you'll be able to see this when you see different icons. You'll think, oh yeah, that's why that's that way. There are no cast shadows. All of my artist friends know that you see the direction of the light coming in, and there's a shadow. Not in icons. There is no evidence of outside light. There's always a glow from within, like a lighted lampshade. They're filled with and permeated by spiritual light. There is reverse perspective, so the viewer is drawn into the picture. And you can see it, instead of diminishing, it's the other way around. You're coming into an open, it's an unusual thing, reverse perspective. They're not anatomically correct. They're old, otherworldly, such as elongated features or otherwise out of proportion. Their ears are exposed to receive God's messages. The colors, such as red, indicate earthly colors, blue is heavenly colors, gold represents the divine light of God's world. The halo is a globe of light, and you'll find the halos only on Christ, the Holy Family, and saints. The halo is a globe of light, radiance from within, the radiance of a divine grace, grace which is the gift of God. A testimony of the fact that, as Paul puts it, it's not I who live, but Christ lives in me. Inscriptions, as you'll see here, St. Simeon, the God-bearer. If it's an English-speaking congregation, it will be in English. Whatever church it's in, that's the language it's used. And most all of these have an inscription. Some of them have like a monogram. The Greek letters, IC, XC, this is Jesus, and this is Christ. It's a monogram for Jesus Christ. But this way you know what you're looking at, as if you couldn't figure that out. Christ has 3 letters in his halo, a nimbus, and that one is here. Alpha, Omega, Omicron, and Nu, which means I am the one. All of this is mixed in with Greek, and it's fascinating. He's always facing forward, too. This is interaction, addressing himself to the world. Icons are a visual form of prayer in line and color and seek to tell us something true about God and the saints. They follow a long tradition of truths that are communicated visually rather than through words, a theology passed on from one artist to the next. They are meant to help us open ourselves to God's love. They have many times been called windows to heaven. And now I'm just going to tell you a little bit about some of these. This is a young Moses, and this is the one that was found in the Sinai, intact, preserved. This is Jonah and the whale, which tells the story of his, I can't remember the name that starts like Nineveh. And this one, interesting enough, now here I am, this little old lady. This is Daniel in the lion's den. Daniel is in the clothing of a prince. Why? Because he was kidnapped and held for ransom, and he was treated in the station that he deserved, and they dressed him in royal clothes. But this is part of all these Bible stories that you think, oh, I didn't know that. You learn no matter what. This one I did, and the Russian looked like, what's his name? The crazy Russian, the wild hair, Rasputin. He was absolutely fascinating. This one is done with egg tempera. In the egg tempera, you literally break the egg in your hand, and then you take the protein, the yellow yolk, and mix it with the dried, beautiful paints. And this one was an experience. He was an experience.
Wait, Rasputin?
No, Rasputin. He looked like him.
Oh, okay.
This one I did not in a class. I was kind of happy about this. This one, and the letters inside the globe, the initials are in Greek as Christ the righteous judge. So you're constantly learning and in the joy of learning. This is he is always armed. This is Michael. The two Many times you'll see these, Michael on one side and Gabriel on the other. This is the Holy Trinity. This original one is in Russia under lock and key practically. It is well preserved. It is considered one of the natural resources, the national treasures of Russia. So we just hope it has some influence. So they're taking good care of it, but it is one of the oldest icons in existence. And these are just, this, I did not know this either. This represents Anna or Anne. She is the mother of Mary. That's why you see all the little Catholic girls named Mary Ann, mother and daughter. But the reason I had this, I wanted to sort of give Mary some attention. I love this. I have sisters, and I always think of, this is the visitation when, well, this is Gabriel at the Annunciation. And Mary, he's given her the word, you're going to have a baby. And this one is the visitation where she shares her news, and they feel the baby leap in her womb. Just treasure these. These tell the story. And then in Mary, in here we have the start of Christ's life. This is the nativity. And interesting enough, we talk about the prophecy and all that sort of thing. Y'all gonna have to cut me out if I get to talk. This, you see Christ in a crypt. This is prophecy that he will die. And then we have Joseph, and y'all didn't realize this either. Joseph was an old man. He wasn't a youngster. He was a good man. And here we have a prankster. You had constantly sowing doubt, and we all have that. Constantly needling at us. Should I believe that? Nope. And then we have, interesting enough, here are the three wise men, and they have on little caps, which tells you they're Gentiles. So we have the Gentiles coming into the story. And of course, you recognize the angels and the shepherd. But the importance, over and over and over again, is they tell a story. The story they have a message. This is a presentation. All right, we got the babe. Now we got him in church. This is a presentation at the temple. This is so precious to me. This is St. Simeon. And then you see Mary. Mary's raising her child. She knows. She's almost always sort of sad. And here she is with the infant Christ, and he is holding in his little hand the prophecy of what's yet to come. And then he gets into his ministry, and Mama says, son, go help these people out. This is the first of perhaps 12 miracles. This is the first one. This is the wedding in Cana. The first one. And then you think, oh, what are the rest? It triggers things. This is what I love. Never heard this one, and I've heard it ever since I've heard the scripture. This is, and I'll read it to you. It says, behold, he who keeps watch over Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. This is the juvenile Christ. This is the teenager. And here's the teacher with his open book and the good shepherd. And up here we have, this is called the Passion or the bridegroom. And here's the cane that he was whipped with, the crown and tied arms. And I love this one. This is the triumphant entry into Jerusalem. And this is Mary Magdalene with the egg, Easter. Ask me questions. I love this. I could go on and on and on now that I got my motor started.
Okay, well, answer this.
Oh, please make it easy.
All of the icons are original, and
Yeah.
you are working
Yeah.
to make your imprint. Tell us how you, I mean, you told us how you started with plaque or whatever, but what's your inspiration for getting started and how you do it?
How I got started was I was in Mobile. I mean, literally, here I am. I had so many different things going on. I was just married, second marriage, and organizing that. My child was going into seventh grade, and I had a daddy that had had a stroke, a mama that had a heart attack, and an aunt that was losing her mind. So everybody was okay, and Jack said, go and do this workshop. The workshop was at Beckwith, and he said, you can get home fast. So I'd always loved art. I'd never done it. Not like today's child that can go and splurge into the art field. I was out there teaching schools. So I thought, this is my chance. So I took this class and was there at Beckwith for a week. Could get home fast in Mobile. And what inspired me was the religion, but the art. It was like having a little devotional every day. But it wasn't just drudgery. It was gaiety, happiness, being with other people that pretty much had the same mindset of let's get on with this painting, and the history of it, the tradition of it, the journey. But, and anybody can do it. He took this, the iconographer, the teacher, you start with a board, and I was going to not belabor the point, but this is cabinet grade birch. Now, in the old days, they would saw a wedge crosswise out of a tree. It's called a bowl. Crossword people, you'll know now. B-O-L-E. And to keep it from splitting, they would layer a piece of linen on top of it. This has got an old sheet or something on it. And then gessoed, and then rubbed down. And it is smooth. And then, I'm telling you the method. Did I answer your question? But this...
If this icon of, let's use St. Paul. This
All right.
icon of St. Paul's is not an original.
No.
Other than you created.
Let me tell you.
What makes it, I mean, where do you get that? Out of a book? Off a wall? Out of your head?
Yes. Yes, you do. This is the meaning of icons, and all these little tabs are different ones that I have done. I did, and they have come from all over the world. And one of them I've got here is this beautiful one from the Sinai. I'd love to go there when I win the lottery. But you can see how beautiful these are. Ancient old ones. And I want you to please use these books. But let me tell you, St. Paul, when I got St. Paul, his foot was damaged and it was missing. You have a license to fix it. And like, you know, instead of making it just no foot. And I didn't like the hand on this one. So I kind of changed her fingers a little to give her that compassion of holding her baby. Phil Zimmerman, he said, one of the problems when it got so popular there for a while, that people would get an icon, and a commercially made one, and would distress it, hit it with chains and make the look raggedy, you know. what do you call it? Distressed, but there was a popular way because people were doing their furniture that way, shabby chic. And he said, that's not right. You're messing it up. If anything, you ought to be repainting them, repairing them. If they're damaged, fix them.
Maybelle, what inspires you to choose a particular subject to create?
This one was because I went to St. Paul's. This one, and the angels I just always loved. This one, to me, was important because I knew I could use it in church to do what we're doing. And that was that one. And this one, see, I prefer doing the events or the festivals because as a teacher, I mean, this one, I could tell you, I could talk all day on this. But also what he was teaching at the workshop. See, I'd never heard of Napsion. I'd never heard of this. And I went to, and I also, while I was there, learned some techniques, how to do the stars and that sort of thing. Yes, ma'am, Joanne.
Well, I gather that you've always been interested in art.
Yeah.
Did you do painting and stuff like that?
I did bulletin boards. I mean, you know, just, yeah. I mean, seriously. But I always felt like I had something drawing me to it.
Yeah, well, here's the rest of my question. So you go to this workshop, and suddenly you're creating things like this after one workshop?
Well, I kept going back to class. I went, wherever he had a class, I would go, if I could. And because I was drawn to it. It was, and it's very time consuming. I will not kid you. I will show you the brushes that we use.
Could you finish this in your workshop?
I could finish some of them. I did not finish this one. I brought it home and finished it, but I could because I already knew the gist of it. But some of them I could not finish at the workshop. And then some of them I didn't do in the workshops, like some of them I did at home. But they all, I remember people that were in the workshops. I remember the laughter of the food, and they would, and you know, late at night somebody would be painting, and somebody would bring out a bottle of wine or something. It was really good.
So I'm going to push a little past this. What I will tell you about herself is that she does fabulous watercolors. All different kinds of movies. So did the watercoloring and other art
Sprung off of this, yeah. This is done with, this is the powdered, beautiful things that you mix with the egg tempera, which is way horrible. And this is a number 6 liner. This is what we paint with. And this is another size of 4 that we paint with. These are the tools. And it's a lot of calligraphy. I mean, you just are going little cross stitches, and then you're doing this, and then you do the folds, you get that, and you'll see it now that I brought it out. You'll see these little tiny strokes. And you start out reverse. You start out dark, and then you build up light, whereas usually you start out the opposite way.
So like on the nativity, did you have the whole thing in mind?
Yes, I had a prototype. I knew where I was going. I knew what was there. But my little faces and my little nuances. But let me tell you, I thought, how in the world do you make that circle around that 24-karat gold? You put down this substance and let it get a little tacky, like Jell-O, just barely, because you don't want to tear up the gold. And then you lay that gold down, and then you brush it with a soft brush. And then you take this instrument, y'all know the old-timey terminology, a nib, the end of a fountain pen? All right, you take a nib, and which is no more than a little claw handle, you wipe your paint in there, and then you go around and pray that you make it all the way around. Lots of prayer. And sometimes it goes splat. And then you start all over. But he was so good, and there was a nun in the class, and she would just say, "Oh God, I'm not worthy of this," and he said, "Sister, you get back there and finish that icon." He had this strong, but see, there was none of that not worthy or God inspire me. It was serious. We did prayer. We did a prayer every morning before we started, but it was a prayer of, it was a helpful or happy, inspire, guide, patience, everything you need to keep yourself going. It was a wonderful experience.
Absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
It's so fun to see how excited you are about it. Such a passion for it.
I do have a passion for it.
Really.
It has seen me through years of things. It's,
Well, I wanted to ask you, because I know some are more detailed than others,
Yeah.
some are larger, some are smaller.
Yeah.
What would you say the average amount of time it takes?
Well,
for one?
I would say some of these, it varies. This one took me a long time. Now, and one of them, I read a letter from, the banner took me a long time because Jack was so sick. But to have him, I would say the banner took me a couple of weeks or more because it was stop and start. But y'all, this is so personal, but I'm just going to share it anyway. This was 2008. Jack Godwin walked down the aisle carrying this, and his two sons were right beside him. And this was so important, and he was on drugs and everything else, but he walked down that church means the world to him. This church meant the world to him. But the icons, they just keep refueling my belief and my reason for being. But it all takes time. We would be at that icon workshop for just barely less than a week, but we would paint from 8 to 8. We would, but the time flies. You don't even realize it. That's the beauty of a workshop, is that you're there, you're doing it, you don't put the clothes in the laundry, you don't cook, you don't take the dog for a walk, you are there. And everybody can do it. I'm telling you, I have some of the, now y'all just gonna have to make me stop. I was going to show, yes, I'm going to take like for example, I just could not get how I wanted to finish off the lamb. I have the prototype, but how do you paint that woolly thing? So I kept trying it out. This is what you do. You just mess up and then you wipe it out and you do it again. This is the easiest medium I've ever used. It's called gouache. It's a watercolor that's not translucent. It's like velvet. Well, that's not a good terminology, but it's solid. And so you get your depth and over by different things. But what I'm saying is, if you're patient enough, this is the picture, thanks to you found it in the dial, but this is the whole congregation of St. Paul's in, I think, 2008, but I'm not sure of that. That's the congregation that walked down. Pass it around.
Oh, thank you.
But I was going to show you a prototype. I did this one in Apalachicola. You know, this is the fisher of men. All right, I'm gonna quit. Tell me, yes.
Do you draw on this?
You literally draw. You trace. You put it down and trace it, but you only trace like the outline. And this is a story about Saint Martin. Saint Martin was a soldier, and he came upon this poor beggar, homeless person. He tore his garment in half to clothe this poor man, and found out that the beggar was Christ. You know, this is a story. This is telling that I was going to show you how everybody can. What else can I tell you?
What was your first icon?
My first one was Our Mother of Kazan. The reason it's Our Mother of Kazan is because Kazan is the name of a town in Russia, and this is where she was found. And he, my iconographer friend, who probably is shuddering that I hadn't seen him in years, but he's a wonderful man, he made this color up, the Kazan, and this is the way they dress their hair. They don't show their hair, but Mary Magdalene does, because she dried the feet of Christ with her hair. There are all sorts of reasons. I finished this one in the workshop. It's the first. But he holds your hand sort of. No, he says, get over there and finish that. I can't.
Where did somebody learn this now? I mean, this is some.
Well, we may recruit him to come back to Beckwith. And I'll call and talk to him.
Love to do that.
I think,
Rona will set it up for you.
and I'll bring the wine.
When did you start with your?
Whoa, it was way back there. It was probably I don't know, it's been 20 years at least. But I haven't been at it every year, just like I haven't done anything since COVID. I haven't done anything since the Jonah and the whale. Yeah, just plain old varnish. Now, you know Miss Sue's patio right out here, this is where I have St. Francis, and he is marine grade varnish, so it will stay out but that is out there. This one in the center is in the children's Sunday school room. Christ and Mary Lou Catherine, who died, that is in her honor, and it's also in the children's Sunday school room. Mary Lou was a really good, wonderful Sunday school teacher for years. Thank you. Thank y'all for patience. Thank you.
The thing that's really inspiring to me about this is that iconography is a spiritual discipline, it's a contemplative practice.
Yeah.
So it's a thing
right.
that you can do, that you can put your hands to, put your mind to, that brings you to the truth of God about life and about yourself and about others. Just like what we do on Tuesdays with our centering prayer, this is another form of contemplative practice. Because it takes hours.
Yeah.
And it takes concentration.
Yeah.
And it's really kind of a Zen state that you get
Exactly.
to
Yeah.
when you're doing that sort of a
That's
thing.
right.
So thank you so much for
Oh,
sharing.
y'all are so good to me. Go.